We do not get a break from ourselves. We're in the bathroom with ourselves. We're in the shower with ourselves. We are everywhere with ourselves. And if we had to choose another human being to be the person that was by our side 24/7, no breaks, would we choose somebody who says that we're fat, that says that we're mean, that says that we're ugly, that says that we're stupid? No, we would choose a person who's kind to us and makes us feel good about ourselves. So why do we do it to ourselves? We need to be our own best friend. We need to be our own cheerleaders and reward ourselves for the good things that we do. Give yourself a fist bump. High five yourself in the mirror, whatever it is, But you've got to be good to yourself in order to be able to do the things that you want to do in life. Because if you're constantly beating yourself up, you hold yourself back.
Welcome to Well Said, Finger Lakes, the podcast where we speak with businesses, organizations, and interesting people from in and around the Finger Lakes region of New York State. My name is Jeremiah Craig, and we're here in the live room at Well Said Media in Ithaca, New York. And our guest today is a trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapist at Whole Wellness Counseling from the Binghamton location area, and is also a facilitator of youth mental health first aid and adjunct faculty member at Binghamton University. Please welcome Kristin Condie. Thank you so much for joining us today, Kristin.
Thank you for having me.
So that was a very big list that I went through for your introduction, maybe the biggest list of anybody so far. Can you tell me about how you got involved in this line of work with everything that you do?
Okay, sure. So I originally started out in social work just wanting to help people. And I had no intention of becoming a therapist when I first started out. But then as I went along, I started to realize that I'm pretty good at working with people, and I wanted to give it a try. So I started working first at Ithaca County Mental Health. This is the first place I worked as a therapist, and that's where I got all of my licensing done and everything to be able to go into private practice. But I've also worked in schools. That's where I became trained in the trauma-focused portion, because I worked in a BOCES program that worked with children who had severe mental illness or experienced severe traumas, and so that's where that training came in. And it's been a fabulous process of learning how to use that and how to help people through their traumas. And Whole Wellness Counseling came to me. Katie Durant is the CEO. We actually went to high school together.
Oh, wow.
And so she came to me and was talking about this business she wanted to start and how she wanted to make a positive place for social workers to work, because so much social work is like very, very you're experiencing secondhand trauma all the time, and there's not always a lot of supports for people, and there's not a lot of taking care of the social workers. And so she wanted to create this business that does take care of the social workers and provides a positive workplace and provides good services to the community. So it was a great opportunity to jump on board with her.
I love it. That sounds incredible, and also it sounds like it's a very rewarding career to be in. What is the most sort of rewarding clientele to work with? Is it kids? Is it LGBTQ plus, or some other group of people that you find most rewarding to work with? So,
I mean, I absolutely love working with kids. They're so much fun. I love that I get to play at work, so that's awesome. I love graduating kids from therapy, because a lot of times when kids have to come to therapy, they think that they're broken, that something's wrong with them. And so when I can graduate them, like they know that they're okay, and that they just, sometimes therapy is there to provide some support or to teach some skills. But honestly, I've found recently that I really enjoy working with adults who have gone through significant traumas in their childhood, and I've helped them to heal from that, and being able to see the difference from when they first walk in the door to when they're ready to graduate from therapy. And it's just an amazing process to see the transformation that people go through.
Right, because it's not only kids that feel like it's maybe their fault that they feel the way that they feel, but also adults too, and it could go back to a childhood trauma. What is a therapy session like with you? Is it mainly like a talk therapy session, or are there more methods that you use that are newer and experimental, kind of, like eye movement, desensitization, and reprocessing?
So I do not do any EMDR. I do with the kids. I do a lot of play therapy stuff and parent education.
Okay.
So that it's kind of a joint thing, because children don't have control over their worlds. And if I start to ask them to behave different, but I don't work with the parents too, the parents don't know how to react and be prepared for that.
Right.
So I work with both together. But when people come in, I try to be very comfortable. Of all the research about all the different therapies, a common thread through all of them is the therapeutic relationship with the therapist. And so I work very hard at building a good relationship with people. I believe that humor is super helpful in the healing process. So I use humor a lot in the work that I do. So I use the various methods, like the cognitive behavioral therapy and the trauma-focused, doing trauma narratives and all of those things. But there's always some laughter happening and trying to help people to see some positives. I view my role as helping people find their hope again. A lot of people have lost hope, and trying to help bring that back is one of my goals in the therapy process.
I love it. And laughter is a great way to do it. So you got jokes when somebody comes to see you.
Well, it's not jokes. So all right. So I have to be careful of who I use it with, because not everybody gets it. But
no doubt.
My love language is sarcasm, and so that will come out. But I always make sure people understand it, and I don't use it if they don't. But just taking a situation and trying to be able to not make light of it, but talk about it lightly, so it's not so painful to step into it and to dip your toe in the concept of, I'm going to talk about this horrible stuff, know, so to make it not seem so daunting and overwhelming to take that step. Right.
And speaking of hopelessness and just trying to bring that hope back, if we could go like super high level for folks, because right now we're recording this in the beginning of January, and it's dark and cold, and seasonal disorder is real, and people become sad, right? That's what it's called.
Yeah.
What are some techniques that people can use to sort of not fall into that hopelessness during a winter season that we have up here in New York State?
Sure, that is super important. If you talk to any doctor in New York State, they're going to tell you that everybody has low vitamin D. So talk to doctors and be sure that you're getting that taken care of. There are lots of strategies for just trying to maintain a good activity level despite the shortened days. And so I often work with people on trying to find what are the little things that you enjoy that you can still do even though it gets dark at 4:30 and even though it's cold out. And how do we keep your body moving? Because there's so many good things that happen from exercise, so we need to do that. What are people's interests and hobbies? We need to make sure that there's some that work in the winter, right? People will list off, I love hiking and I love boating and I love, but okay, how many months out of the year can we do that? What are some hobbies that work for, because really 6 months of our year is this blah. Exactly. So we have to be realistic with that and come up with ways to deal with it. But if people are really dealing with some chemical things, sometimes they might need medication, which we would refer out for. There's also lights that people can use that can help with getting some of that vitamin D that we all need. So there's lots of different strategies, and people should talk to professionals. Don't feel like you have to go it alone. Don't feel like every February has to be so horrible that you don't want to get out of bed. And get on it now. Don't wait until it's that bad, because it's hard to get out of bed to go to therapy if you're at that point. Come a little sooner if you know that this is your cycle.
Yeah, that's a really good tip, is to be proactive about it, because everybody feels that way in March, or so many people feel that way in March and in February, and just getting out of it in April before it starts to get nice and warm and sunny where you feel like you can get back outside. So being proactive is a great tip. If we can move back to just being up here in New York State, when you were talking about the CEO and going to high school with her, when I was looking at the Whole Wellness Counseling website, I noticed that there were locations all over New York State, in Binghamton, here in Ithaca, in Orchard Park on the west side of the state, in Saratoga Springs on the east side of the state. So it sounds like it started in Binghamton if you two went to high school together.
Well, actually, so the two of us went to high school in Elmira.
Oh, okay.
And she lives in Ithaca, and I live closer to Binghamton now.
Right. Elmira, Binghamton. Yeah. I'm sorry. I made that mistake.
Yep. So she's in Ithaca. The first one was here in Ithaca. And then she asked me to start the one in Binghamton. And so what she's done is really looking at people that she knows and trusts and values their skills, and is handpicking people that she feels will be good for the organization. And so that's kind of how the locations happened, because it's where she knew people that would be good. And so it's, even though it's spread out, it's still very personalized, and it's still, kind of an intimate little group. We meet once a week through Zoom so that we can all have connection with each other, and we can talk about how things are going and help each other out if we're struggling with anything. And so even though we're kind of all over the place, we're trying to make it feel like we're together.
Yeah, it's really cool that you guys connect in that way, because so many places that have businesses in different areas in a region, a regional franchise, maybe you could say, don't connect in that way. So it builds more of a culture, and that's got to be really important, especially when you're trying to help people.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so it's great, because if we're working with a client and in the back of our mind we're like, oh, Amy out in Orchard Park, she specializes in this. I'm going to talk to her and get some advice on how to help this client. And so it's perfect, because we've got all these people to pull from, and they're all really good at what they do.
Exactly, and it goes back to that support group thing that you were talking about too, with the social workers, to know that you have those folks there to give you that support must go a really long ways in this region with a regional business like Whole Wellness Counseling, which brings me to a topic that I've been thinking about a lot over the past year with the more national or international therapy services like BetterHelp. And once that came out and all of the advertising came out on all the YouTube videos and podcasts, like, you can't listen to anything without hearing about BetterHelp.
Yes.
And it kind of made me feel a little bit skeptical of the services that they were offering, just because if they can advertise so much, then there might be something shady going on. And last year, that shadiness finally came to light, where the FTC said, you can't do all of this data sharing that they were doing with third parties like Facebook, right? And they, I guess, are getting fined almost $8 million for all of that. Can you tell me about your thoughts about those digital services like BetterHelp and how they compare to Whole Wellness Counseling?
Sure. So I'm not here at all to badmouth any other business.
That's okay. I'll badmouth BetterHelp.
I did, have an experience, though, where my name was put up as one of their people, and then you click on it, it says I'm full, and then it goes to someone else. That was not when I was with Whole Wellness. But so those were some of the things that were happening. So the data sharing is definitely an issue, and so that, that is disturbing. And like Whole Wellness Counseling is doing so much to make it feel like a community for the staff, and trying to be sure that everybody is receiving a living wage. That is not necessarily the case with these bigger companies. And so unfortunately, when, there are good people that work for them, but oftentimes they will then leave because it's not the work environment that people might like. I know, it's not that all the work is bad that happens.
Right.
There's good people out there, but it is concerning when an organization is that big. You do start to think that it's more about money than about helping people, and so definitely going to the local organizations has a benefit of, because you're in with your neighbors. They know what's happening in your community to help support you when things maybe don't go the way they should in that community. Whereas with an organization like that, who knows where your therapist is and, if they have any concept of what your life is like.
Yeah. And it seems to me like we're entering a period of time where therapy and getting help for mental health is losing a stigma that it had. And my fear with these services like BetterHelp is that they're going to detract from that by trying to focusing on the money or focusing on the data that they can collect from people in these situations.
Well, and I do appreciate that they have helped make it very open about mental health. That people are talking about it. So I do appreciate that portion of it, because it is getting the word out there in a way that all the small organizations can't afford to do.
True.
So that piece is good. I feel like the younger generation coming up has a much more open mind about therapy and are much more willing to partake. We still find that some of the older generations have a little bit of a struggle with it because it's not how they were raised. It wasn't the norm. And what we're trying to do is to help people understand, our brain arguably could be considered the most important organ in our body because it controls all of the organs in our body. And when you don't take care of your brain, then all the other things tend to go by the wayside too. And so, but we go to the doctor all the time and don't think anything of it. So we should be seeking mental health treatment also, even if it's just a yearly checkup. How am I doing? Are there things I need to work on? Because we're not taking care of the most important part of us, and it affects all of us. It affects our physical health. It affects our spiritual health. It affects our families. It affects our coworkers. I think we need to take it seriously, and we need to talk about it and not be ashamed.
Exactly, and I love that we are entering a period of time where that shame for finding that mental help is kind of going away. Like the stigma is just, and it's making me more positive about the future. 100%.
Absolutely.
I like that you mentioned that the most important. Arguably the most important organ in the human body is the brain, because I was recently listening to an Alan Watts podcast or program where he argues that the stomach is the most important organ.
Yes, yes, gut health is the new focus. We gotta have a healthy gut, but also if our brain is healthy, we make better choices for our gut.
Yes,
because if we are unhealthy in our brain, then we might be reaching for the alcohol or reaching for the drugs or reaching for the food or, whatever it is that gives us that quick fix because we just don't feel right. And if we can be in a better place in our brain, we make better choices about what enters our body.
100%. I just really like to think about that argument, whether it's stomach versus brain, which is
the
most important.
They go together. We can't really live without either of them, but
and that's ultimately what he comes to is like it all works as one thing.
Right. Can't drive a car with only 3 tires. You need all 4.
Exactly. I love it. So speaking of losing the stigma around mental health and seeking help, let's talk the common phrase, since we're here in January, recording this in the first week of the month, the phrase "New Year, New Me." What do you think about that? Because I've been seeing that it kind of has some, it kind of goes back and forth, like some controversy. Some people are like, well, maybe nothing was wrong with you, or maybe it's good to focus on a new you. What are your thoughts?
There's a lot of pressure for people to think that they have to go from whatever they think was wrong with them, whether it was not eating well, not exercising, not making healthy choices for lifestyle, whatever people are concerned they're not doing well, and then to think on January 1st, I'm going to fix all of it. It's not realistic. We really need to break things down into smaller, attainable parts so that we can just progressively throughout our lives be creating the new us, of whoever we want that to be. There's no point where we are complete, really, until we're ready to move on to whatever's next because we're always growing, we're always changing, and we just need to keep checking in on ourselves. Like, okay, I was a little too sedentary this fall. I need to take a couple more walks each week. That's attainable. If I say I'm going to get a gym membership and I'm going to go 5 days a week for an hour, it's not realistic because you haven't developed that pattern. So small steps and just one thing at a time so that you can see the success, and then success breeds success. So the more you do well, the more you feel better, the more you want to do more well.
Yeah. And then it comes back to, if you do it like that, then you're not so hard on yourself. You're not like judging yourself for not living up to that huge bar you set for yourself on January 1.
Right. Well, yeah. So negative self-talk, that is a huge part of what we work with too. I always try to talk to people about we are the only person that we spend 24 hours a day with. We do not get a break from ourselves. We're in the bathroom with ourselves. We're in the shower with ourselves. We are everywhere with ourselves. And if we had to choose another human being to be the person that was by our side 24/7, no breaks, would we choose somebody who says that we're fat, that says that we're mean, that says that we're ugly, that says that we're stupid? No, we would choose a person who's kind to us and makes us feel good about ourselves. So why do we do it to ourselves? We need to be our own best friend. We need to be our own cheerleaders and reward ourselves for the good things that we do. Give yourself a fist bump. High five yourself in the mirror, whatever it is, But you've got to be good to yourself in order to be able to do the things that you want to do in life. Because if you're constantly beating yourself up, you hold yourself back.
That was a great answer. I'm feeling so good. You are really good at this.
Thanks.
I might have to book a session with you and drive an hour down there.
All right. Well, I do telehealth too, so you don't even have to drive.
Perfect. Love it. Thank you for that. That was a really good answer. It just makes me smile so much. Another thing for this year that's weighing so heavy on everybody's mind is that it's an election year. And after the last two election years, from 2016 and 2020, I'm sure that a lot of people are just really stressing over this year. In fact, it's like the biggest thing that I am not looking forward to this year is the fact that we have to go through this again. How can we mentally prepare for another election year?
So one of the things that's really important is to really establish what we have control over. And so one of the things we have control over is the ability to vote. One of the things that we have control over, if our life allows us to, is to help other people register to vote. We can be involved in the processes as much as we can, but then we also need to be able to realize where our limits are and kind of step back and say, I've done what I can do, and kind of take a deep breath and hope that the universe is on our side and that things go for the best. And nobody knows what that is. We're so polarized right now in our country that people feel like there's this right and wrong, good and evil, but everything is so blended and so mixed, and there's a little bit of right and wrong on both sides, and a little, so we've got to really be able to try to bring people back together and try not to be like these opposing views and we can't get along. The whole point of where we live is that we're supposed to be able to get along, that we're supposed to be able to take things from all the different people and make that beautiful thing that's supposed to be the United States of America. And so do what you can with all of that political stuff, and then take some deep breaths and let it go when you've done all that your part is capable of doing. Because unless you're at the top doing these things, there's only so much we can do.
Yes.
But we have to vote. We cannot sit back and be quiet,
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. And going back to what you said earlier on in the podcast, it was sort of in the introduction where you said, I guess it was when you were talking about BetterHelp, being someplace locally and knowing what's going on is really important for you to connect with some of your patients and clients. I've found that focusing more locally in the community, just putting my energy where people are around me, really helps me kind of detract from what's going on in a global sense. And it's like that person to person, that small community, the affecting the people who are around you for good. It really makes a difference for me. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I totally agree with that, and I take it a step farther to Mr. Rogers and the looking for the helpers, right? Because amidst anything bad that goes on in the world, there are so many people doing good things to help people. And that's what we need to focus on. And that stuff isn't political party based. There are all kinds of people who are our first responders who are coming out to help people, who are, there to hold people when their saddest moments are happening and to help people to feel better. And we really need to take that into account. The news loves to publish all of the things that get everybody's attention, that grab your eye. So it's all the negative stuff. My theories on this are that our brain really holds on to negative because originally when we were out in the wild and we had to run for our lives, we had to remember, that's where, the danger is. I need to stay away from that. We don't live in that environment anymore, but our brains still grab onto that information, and we have to very consciously try to give it the positive information and make it remember that positive stuff, because it's going to hold the negative stuff, no problem, but we need to feed it all the positive stuff that we can so that we can wake up in the morning and have hope and feel like we make a difference and we matter.
Yes, more positivity, the better. I love it. Speaking of kind of in this route of election year and maybe a little bit of politics, tell me about mental health's current standing in healthcare and healthcare reform.
So unfortunately, mental health care is very unfunded. It's one of the first places that lose funding.
Yeah.
People talk about the need to improve mental health care, but the money doesn't go there. So it makes it really challenging. And so there are individual places that are trying to bring more mental health into the mental health care or the healthcare system. So you might see more therapists being in at your primary care physician's office. So there are attempts at making those things happen. But there's definitely more funding needed. We're at the preventative level. We're trying to help people to get healthy so that they don't end up hospitalized at some point. There are not enough beds for the people who need to be hospitalized. There's not enough funding for that. The system for even getting into those is horrible. People sit in ERs for a month at a time before they're even sent out to a hospital to get the care that they need, and they're not getting care while they're there. So it's really an unfortunate breakdown in our system that mental health care is not prioritized, and it really needs to be. There's so much that's just wrong with it. I watched a lot when I worked in the school with those kids that went through some really severe stuff to get them the level of treatment they need. There's not enough.
Yeah, and what can I do or somebody who's watching or listening do to sort of change that?
Well, one of the things we need to do is be speaking up. People need to be talking to legislators about where the money goes. People need to be talking to the hospitals about where money goes. If you look at the ERs and who's handling the crises, those places are these horrible little tiny, everybody mushed in together places, so that if you came in with a mental health problem, you're probably leaving with COVID.
No.
So we really need to take a look at these things, and we all need to be asking the people who have their hands in those pots to be making priorities of the mental health care system. There should be a separate entrance for mental health care so that people aren't in the middle of all of those other crises. Because if you're coming in because you've experienced trauma in your life, you don't need to sit and watch all the other traumas that are going on, you know? So we really need to speak up.
Well, I will do my best to do that as well. Maybe write my representative and see what can be done, and see what's on the ballot this year too. Hopefully there's something good for mental health and including into mental health reform. How are you currently taking new patients? And if so, how does somebody go about booking a session with you?
Sure. So yes, all of our offices are taking new people, and we can do in person or virtually. So whatever people's preference is, they can go to wholewellnesscounseling.org and they can make an appointment online, or they can call 607-793-4260 to schedule an appointment.
And is there any consultation beforehand so that you know that you might be the right fit for somebody?
Sure. We offer a 15-minute consultation with as many of our therapists as somebody wants to, so that they can decide who might be the best fit for them.
How important is finding the right fit for a person and their therapist? Because you might not think that it matters going into it, but sometimes it might matter who you're paired up with.
It really does, because it's all about the relationship, and you need to trust the person that you're going to go and potentially open up with all these things that you probably don't share with anybody else. And so it needs to be a trusting relationship, and you need to feel comfortable with that person. So it's absolutely okay to shop around a little bit. It's hard in this environment right now because so many people do not have openings. So that's one of the nice things about this new growing business, is we do have openings, and so we're happy to take on new clients.
That's great to hear. And is it frowned upon to have a patient say, maybe this isn't working for me, like I don't feel a connection, and for you to say maybe to find somebody else? Or how does that happen? Should people feel comfortable trying to shop around and so that nobody's feelings are hurt, whether it's...
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
People should be doing that. People should be checking in and feeling comfortable. And even, if you've got a good therapist, the therapist checks in and says, so how's this feeling? Does this seem like this is a good fit? Are we heading in the direction you want to be heading in? There should be those periodic check-ins to be sure that it's feeling okay. Because if the client's not comfortable, then the therapy is not effective. And that doesn't help the therapist feel good either, right?
That makes sense.
So part of the work that we do is really our own self-reflection, and being able to put that aside and be like, okay, that's not personal. They just have a different personality that might need a different person to provide this treatment, and that's okay.
Yeah, and that makes sense to look at it like that. I feel like when I started going to therapy, I wasn't sure if it was okay for me to be like, I don't know if I'm connecting with this person. Is it okay to find somebody else? So it was difficult for me to make sense of that. So it's nice to hear that that's an accepted thing, that both sides can.
Yeah, and sometimes we'll even reflect ourselves and say, something's not feeling like it's working here. You know, something doesn't seem right. And then we start thinking, well, is there someone else who might be a better fit? And then we start talking to them. Do you want to try this other person out? And we've had that happen within Whole Wellness, where someone's like, you know what, we've got this person that is perfect for you. You know, would you like to give them a try?
Great. And it looks like Whole Wellness Counseling has lots of great professionals for people to choose from. I love to hear that there's lots of availability. So folks who are watching and listening, don't wait. Call them today. Book a consultation on their website. I love the energy that you had today, Kristin. It was incredible. I'm feeling so good from all of your answers. And thank you so much for joining us on today's podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. And because I am a play therapist, we're going to end with a spin.
Oh, we got to do the spin.
We're in a spinny chair, so we've got to spin.
All right. Oh, we're going to go for it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Everybody needs to play, not just children.
You're fun. I like this.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah,
thanks for watching, everybody. And if you're interested in our video production here at Well Said Media, you can head on over to our website at wellsaidmedia.com.